Good evening, you're watching the main news on ATV. I'm Belinda Lloyd.
And I'm Joanne Wong. Here are tonight's headlines.
LegCo president kills filibuster of by-election bill, allowing lawmakers to vote on 1,300 amendments.
Pan-Democrats accuse LegCo president of abusing his power and threaten legal challenge.
Incoming chief executive says no guarantees of hospital beds yet for mainland mothers with Hong Kong husbands. The filibuster mounted by radical lawmakers to block the controversial by-election bill has been killed off by LegCo President Zhang Yuxing.
The unprecedented move, which was condemned by the Pan-Democrats, allowed LegCo today to start voting on the 1,300 amendments filed by the radicals.
That process will take several days.
There was plenty of political posturing, grandstanding and drama at LegCo as the epic debate on the by-election bill ran through the night, testing lawmakers as they burned the midnight oil. People Power lawmakers Albert Chan and Raymond Wong continued with their filibuster in their attempt to block the passage of the bill, aiming to stop legislators who resigned from running in by-elections for 6 months. They had filed more than 1,300 amendments to the bill. The pro-establishment camp tried to counter the filibuster by struggling to stay up all night to maintain a quorum as other Pan-Democrats boycotted the session. The debate was adjourned twice in the past 2 weeks because of a lack of quorum, but there would be no third adjournment. One of LegCo's commercial functional constituency members, Philip Wong, complains that more than 30 hours has been spent debating the amendments to no avail and called for an end to the debate. Wong suggested that LegCo President Zhang Yuxing could make use of Rule 92 of LegCo's Rules of Procedures to break the stalemate. The rule states that the President may be guided by the practice and procedure of other legislatures in dealing with circumstances which are not covered by rules here. The Pan-Democratic camp was in for a shock as Zhang agreed with Wong and killed the filibuster at 4:30 this morning, 14 hours after lawmakers began yesterday's marathon session. He ordered the debate on the amendments be finished by noon today. That allowed the legislature to move on to the next stage, where lawmakers vote on the amendments, something that is expected to take around 2 or 3 days. The meeting resumed at 9 a.m., giving the People Power lawmakers only 3 hours to sum up the rest of their amendments before voting began. Zhang acknowledged his decision was controversial, but denied that he was setting a bad precedent and insisted that something had to be done.
As president of LegCo, I have to make sure that the LegCo as an institution must function properly. So when the whole situation reaches such a stage that the council faces the risk of being paralyzed, then I'll have to take action.
His unprecedented move drew immediate condemnation from the People Power lawmakers, who suspected that Beijing loyalist Wong was given an assignment to stop the debate by the central government's liaison office. They called it the darkest day in the history of the legislature.
The ruling that he's going to make is totally unfair because I follow his instruction and advice all through the discussion. And there were quite a number of amendments which I put forward have not been discussed yet. And more than half of those have not been discussed yet. And he was going to, and he's going to stop us from further discussion. And that violates the very fundamental principle of parliamentary democracy.
Philip Wong vehemently denied that he was following orders from the liaison office and insisted that he came up with the idea all by himself.
It's not suddenly. I was well prepared for that. Okay, ever since the president allowed over 1,000 amendments, I started to think, how do we end that? And I started to do some research.
Constitutional Affairs Secretary Raymond Tam says he fully respects the LegCo president's decision, but refused to comment on whether Zhang's actions amounted to a suppression of the minority's right to voice opposition to the bill.
I observed that the LegCo president, as well as some LegCo members, have already expressed their views on the matter, their positions on the matter, and I think now is for the public to judge for themselves.
Despite the tension in the LegCo chamber, lawmakers across the political spectrum took a break earlier and joined together to celebrate Zhang's birthday at the stroke of midnight. This probably wasn't quite what he had in mind to celebrate turning 65, as the fallout from his decision today is likely to continue.
Pan-democratic lawmakers have accused Zhang Yuk-sing of abusing his powers.
They're warning this will allow the government to bulldoze more bills through LegCo.
And one of them plans to go to court to challenge the killing of the filibuster.
In the eyes of Pan-Democrats, LegCo President Zhang Yuk-sing set an alarming precedent today by cutting short the debate on the controversial by-elections bill. Radical lawmaker Leung Kwok-kung plans to challenge that decision in a court through a judicial review. Zhang's critics are worried that if he can kill a filibuster once, he can do it again to help the government force unpopular bills through the legislature.
This is a very, very dangerous precedent because what the president had done is to guillotine any debate that he find that it may not be ending. But even if the debate may actually not ending, because they still need to be debated, and then it's very arbitrary. Then in the future, president can suddenly end the debate and say that, it's never ending, and so I guillotine it.
Civic Party lawmaker Margaret Ng also expressed grave concerns.
I don't like to impute any foul play, but I am very, very surprised that the president had resorted to such a large power in such a summary fashion without first notification to members that he is going to do it and to consult members. I'm afraid that this might set a very, very bad precedent, which might mean that whatever is not expressly provided in the rules of procedure, the president can invent a power for himself and use that power without notification. That would be a very sad day for due process in the Legislative Council.
The Democratic Party is also troubled by the move.
He is, in fact, seeking to arrogate a very wide and unfettered discretion unto himself, such that he can guillotine any meeting at any time. I think this should have been put to the committee, the House committee, for a discussion, and before he make such a decision in such a hasty manner. So we have a lot of reservation on his interpretation of this paragraph.
Liberal Party chairwoman Miriam Lau, who also heads the House committee, stressed that the LegCo president cannot be criticised unless it's found that he used his authority without sound grounds. But she acknowledged that the rules governing the president's power may need to be reviewed.
That is perhaps not good enough. Perhaps needs to be, that provision perhaps needs to be tightened up. But unless we get the rules of procedure to look at it, it's not for me or for any legislator to say that it should be amended this way or another. We need to go carry out a study into it.
Pro-government DAB chairman Tam Yu-chung came to Deng's defense, insisting he did the right thing, as the meeting could not have lasted forever.
Chief Executive-elect Leung Chun-ying says he can't guarantee hospital beds yet for mainland mothers with Hong Kong husbands.
He wants them to wait until his zero-quota policy takes effect next year before knowing how they'll be treated. Chief Executive-elect Leung Chun-ying visited the Prince of Wales Hospital this afternoon. His tour took in the maternity and emergency wards, as well as the intensive care unit for newborn infants, 3 places that have been inundated by mainlanders delivering their babies. After the visit, Leung reiterated his plan to reduce the strain on Hong Kong's maternity services.
Until we have a complete and accurate assessment of the additional burden on the full spectrum of our social services, the quota for mainland mothers whose husbands are also mainland residents giving birth in private hospitals in Hong Kong is 0 for next year.
His policy announced last month was widely welcomed, but mainland women with Hong Kong spouses were worried whether they would be guaranteed beds. Leung said he will have to see the effects of his zero-quota plan before coming up with policies for mainland mothers with local links.
I think it will probably take a few months for the situation to settle down before we know the latest situation.
Leung also said people who think they're suitable can apply to become political assistants in his new administration. The deadline for applications is the end of this month. Leung himself will head a selection committee, which includes his top 8 Fanny Law, to vet applications, and anyone with an interest in politics and administration can apply. Overseas, a senior judge has been appointed the latest leader of Greece as politicians prepare for another election after failing to form a coalition government.
The news did little to reassure world markets that the country's troubles are anywhere near over. Ben O'Rourke reports.
In a ceremony at the presidential palace in Athens, senior judge and head of the administrative court, Panagiotis Pikramonos, was sworn in as prime minister. He's the second Greek leader to be appointed since George Papandreou quit last November. His job is to look after the country until the next general election in June, after the last one ended with no clear winners and parties unable to form a coalition government due to having too few votes and not wanting to be associated with large pro-austerity parties.
I think that the Greek people want a stable government, and they have seen that in order to have a stable government, you need to have parties that have at least a common basis on which to start with.
If a new government isn't formed after the next vote, then that could be the end of Greece's Eurozone membership as well as International Monetary Fund bailout loans. IMF head Christine Lagarde insisted today that Greek politicians shouldn't let that happen.
I think what we should look at is the optimal scenario where the country has the political resolve to actually observe the commitment, comply with the undertaking, stay within the zone, which seems to be the desire of the population. But it goes with the effort to abide by the program which has been put in place and where the Euro partners have actually agreed to support the country.
That's despite IMF officials admitting the austerity measures are harming Greece. A growing number of analysts believe getting out of the euro and ridding itself of repressive IMF bailout deals will be better for the country in the long run.
The significance of what's happening in Greece is that we might see a reversal of this terrible strategy, which is basically killing Europe. Now, people might think that austerity is the policy of grown-ups. Well, people thought that in the interwar years too, and the result was fascism.
That feeling is shared on the streets of Athens, where the crippling austerity measures have led to high unemployment, low wages and disillusionment with the political system. Why have elections again, said this pensioner. Politicians are just one big anonymous company. They're only looking to fill their stomachs, drink and be merry.
What matters is for Greece to free itself from the incredible stranglehold of austerity and the debt at the moment. These policies are killing the country.
The last coalition government agreed on an IMF bailout plan worth $165 billion, following a slightly smaller bailout in 2010. Ben O'Rourke, ATV News.
And after the break on ATV's main news tonight, 2 daredevils become first speed flyers to descend Italy's active Mount Etna volcano.
Mainland fishermen catch a sturgeon weighing more than 600 kilos. Lawyers for the late tycoon Nina Wang's fortune teller and lover Tony Chan have called for a halt to the forgery case against him.
They argued that the prosecution destroyed key evidence by damaging the will that he was using to claim her money.
Tony Chan arrived at Eastern Court this morning, accompanied by his wife and brother for a second preliminary hearing on charges that he forged the will of late billionaire Nina Wang. He claims to have been her lover and fortune teller, and that she left her entire estate to him. His lawyers are trying to terminate the proceedings, arguing that the will in question has been effectively destroyed by chemicals through repeated forensic testing by the prosecution. They said it would now be impossible for the defense to conduct its own tests to prove that Wang and 2 witnesses had physical contact with it. They argue that proceeding with the case would be unfair to Chan. The defense referred to previous cases, pointing out that the court has the power to halt proceedings and protect the defendant. Acting Principal Magistrate David Dufton agreed that the trial could be stopped, but he had to consider whether it would be appropriate to halt the proceedings at this stage. The hearing is set to continue until next week. Prosecutors intend to call chemists and a police officer to testify. Chan had earlier claimed to be the sole heir to Wang's $50 billion estate, but his attempt to inherit the fortune was thrown out when the courts ruled the will he produced was a fake. He was charged with forgery last May. Chan's bail of $40 million in cash and surety was extended. Arthur Akiola, ATV News.
3 Hong Kong students are demanding an apology after they were manhandled by security guards during a protest in Taiwan.
The students had tried to gatecrash 2 events attended by Financial Secretary John Tsang. Bo Leung reports.
This is what happened on Tuesday when Financial Secretary John Tsang visited Taipei to inaugurate Hong Kong's first representative office on the island. 3 Hong Kong students studying in Taiwan held a pro-democracy protest and ended up being manhandled by the security guards when they tried to enter the Hong Kong Economic Trade and Cultural Office. Later, when they followed Tsang to a bookstore for a book launch, they were again manhandled by security staff. The protesters claimed they were injured as a result. One student went to hospital for treatment for leg and arm injuries and has filed a complaint with the police. We just want an apology from the bookstore and the security staff, he said today. The guards were very violent and their attitude was appalling. The Hong Kong office said it's concerned that the protest ended in violence and gave an assurance that it respects the freedom of speech and expression. But it said people should abide by the laws in Taiwan, as well as the rules and regulations set by managers of various venues. The office said it has been in touch with one of the students. It also said that it will approach Hong Kong students studying in Taiwan and listen to their views and concerns, which will be conveyed to the SAR government. Bo Leung, ATV News.
Sports now, 2 more top seeds have advanced in the Rome Masters. Roger Federer and Spain's Rafael Nadal, who had contrasting performances on the slippery blue clay surface of last week's Madrid Open, both made it look easy in Rome. ATV's Corinna Wu reports.
Arthur Akiola, ATV News.
And that's our main news for Thursday night. We'll have an update for you in 1 hour. I'm Belinda Lloyd.
And I'm Joanne Wong. The weather report's next. Thanks for watching ATV. Good night.
Good night.
Welcome back. It was cloudy with rain and thunderstorms today. Temperatures ranged between 25.5 and 28.9 degrees, and the relative humidity varied from 81 to 97%. Winds were moderate, coming in from the east. Checking on the ultraviolet reading, the maximum recorded for the day was 9, and tomorrow's UV levels will be about 6. Here's a look at the weather around the region. An area of low pressure is bringing unsettled weather to the South China Sea. And moving on to the satellite images. We can see a broad cloud band covering the coastal areas of Guangdong. And here's what we can expect over the next few days. Cloudy with rain tomorrow. Temperatures will range from 25 to 29 degrees. More of the same on Saturday, with the mercury hitting a high of 30 degrees. There'll be rain and thunderstorms going into next week, reaching a top temperature of 29 degrees. Let's see how polluted it will be tomorrow. General stations will be low to medium at 10 to 40, and roadside pollution levels will be medium to high at 45 to 70. Finally, here's a look at the weather around the world. Thanks for joining us for the weather, and have a wonderful evening.